We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. John said he was going to be a couple minutes late, but we'll go ahead and start with the tax equalization meeting. We'll open that at 6:32. We'll turn it over. There should be a mic up there that you can use too.
Oh, yeah. But I'm older, does it pick up when I'm just standing there?
Probably have to hold it.
Okay, I'll kick off with some general exemptions. We have Mel and Judy Erdman, Tom Edwin. Sanford has 2, the Trail County Historical Society has several. Hillsboro Senior Center has a few, and the Learning Circle. They only get an exemption on the building, not on the land. So these are for anybody that's basically a wheelchair user, or if somebody is a nonprofit, they get one of these exemptions. I don't know if there's any need for discussion on those, but if not, I just need a motion to approve those general exemptions.
Nothing new has been added since last time?
Nope.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Nicole, seconded by Paul. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And yes for me. Motion carries.
There are still 2 new home exemptions in place for 2025, and that will be for Green and Millers. And we got 2 new home exemptions that start this year for Sigurd and Lovis. The Jordan townhomes have lost their pilot now after selling their buildings, so the values that were put on this year have been prorated to when the sale occurred on March 10th. The rent zone for Chuck Hutton ended this year. There are still rent zones in place for John Meyer, Sunday Brew, and Goose River Investments, and those will all end after 2025. There are still improvement exemptions in place for Huffman's and Forsett's. Those will end after this year, and the improvement exemption for Jim Anderson came off this year. The initial Degelman pilot ended this year. They have an exemption on their expansion that will go through 2028, and then their pilot will kick in after that and run through 2033. Walden's Vet Clinic has an improvement exemption that runs through 2028. Questions on any commercial parcels should be directed towards Kayla Knudsen, as she's currently handling commercial properties for the county right now. There were some structure adjustments made this year. In addition to anyone that put an addition on or built a garage or did some remodeling or anything structural like that, I went through all the parcels again and tweaked some grading errors. If they were graded at a 4, it needed to be a 4+5 or vice versa. I made some of those corrections. None of those corrections by themselves warranted much of an increase, but I did have to adjust lot values this year. Hillsboro's ratios came in only at 87%, and after doing a little research, I adjusted the price per square foot on the lot values. To do this, I looked at any sales that occurred through the year, removed the structure values, and was able to get an average per square foot value on these lots. Buxton and Hatton had theirs reviewed last year. Mayville had theirs reviewed this year with their reassessment. And after adjusting the lot values, Hillsboro ended at 91%, and the county ended at 91.3 overall. One thing that we will be paying attention to is whether or not any of the tariffs that will affect the market. I've heard from a couple people, they plan on postponing their plans to build, but it's way too early yet to decide, to determine whether or not there's going to be any usable data on that. We just finished our 3rd year out of our 5-year plan to have the entire county reassessed. Hatton and Sedmore townships will be getting done this summer, and then it will just be Portland and the remaining townships after that. I have had people ask why their values changed this year when the reassessment was just done a few years ago, but this is something that's monitored every year. So we're never in a position again of having to do 50 to 80% increases to the majority of the city in a single year. So even things like adjusting the lot values, it doesn't take too much to keep us in that 90 to 100% range. So hopefully it'll just be adjustments like that that will have to be done, periodically. Even though it wasn't a reassessment year in Hillsboro, if anybody has questions on their assessment, they can still come and ask me to do an inspection on their property or come into the office or send me an email. It doesn't have to be in a reassessment year. It can be any time
You want to come up and state your name and
Daryl Osborne. Been living here for 23 years, and my property taxes, because of the land assessment, went up 11%. And, you know, I haven't done any improvements on the land, put new buildings, do any construction or nothing like that. They said that, also, I talked to her in her office. They said that my profit, my home value, the structural value, went down $3,000, and the land went up 100% on me. You know, last year, I have paperwork here that shows that my land value was at $11,000. This year, they bumped it up to $22,000. And as a homeowner, a retired homeowner, you know, our incomes are all based on whatever our fixed incomes are. Fixed incomes for retired people in this Hillsboro area average from $850 a month, in which they do receive food stamps and other programs to get them by to $2,500 a month. You know, the people that are the retired people that are lucky enough to take and you know, own their homes, but there are also retired people that are still paying on their homes. So this extra assessment, as they put it, you know, it doesn't make any sense, but, you know, to bring up values of land and stuff around there for people that have been there for some of the retirees been there 30, 35 years and have the lower income of the, you know, of their fixed income. So I don't believe that has been put into assessing the land and bringing this up. You know, over the years I lived here, my value jumped up to $450 was the highest, all the way until this assessment right here, which jumped up $8,000. According to what I read from her, when my house value went down $3,000, they subtracted that number, and that's how they got the $8,000 increase on you know, the land on my property. So they did include also the decrease in the house, but they also raised it. They subtracted that, but they also you know, I came in at 11%. You know, up raise and everything. I don't believe that, you know, these special taxes should be coming up. My opinion is because we lost more businesses in here, and there's not as much tax dollars coming into the city. They're putting it on all the homeowners again. You know, so I don't believe that these assessments are you know, they're basically wishy-washy. They pulled it out of the air and say, okay, we got to take this and this, and we got to upgrade it this much. You know, you said $2 or something per square foot or a square foot or square foot, right? Per square foot. So the assessments, you know, went in on a lot on some people, but it didn't go on all the people. You know, I believe that if you're going to upgrade these taxes, it should be on all people. An example, Jody Soren's, her house, we discussed this, and she says she never got this, so she didn't have any assessment to raise her taxes. And, you know, are we going to just tax the few we want to tax, or everybody?
It was everybody
comments for the assessments or taxing?
For the next customer, or did you
Yep.
want to let her finish?
Oh, no, I was waiting for public discussion, so.
Okay, I think you answered my question.
If you want to come up and state your name and then.
Rob Bell, and 111 Second Street Northeast. And I think you answered my question already. When I think the first time I remembered what our house was assessed for was like $60,000. And then the next notification a few years ago, which is what it was up until currently, was 111.8. And at that point, we got a letter saying you would come and inspect our house.
Yep.
And I told my wife, that's good, let her come and look, because
Yep.
from the outside, it's different than what it looks in the inside.
Yep, definitely.
Excuse me. So, when I was gone and she was home and she let you in, and I said, so did you take her down in the basement? Did you take her out in the garage? Did you take her to the... No, she just looked in the living room and said that's good enough.
If the basement's
So-
not finished, I usually don't go down.
Yeah,
And
but-
then if the garage isn't finished, I usually don't go in the garage.
So anyway, what I would like is to, our living room makes it look like a $111,000 house.
I did go in the, I did go on the main floor.
We paid $22,500 for it, and
What year was that?
that was 29 years ago.
It's increased a little bit. in 30
Anyway,
years.
I don't mind paying my fair share, but I think if you go inside our house and look at some things that I could show you, I think you drop it down, because that's why I encouraged her to let you look in the house so that you could see. We'd have to not make you swear that you don't tell anybody what a basement looks like or anything, but anyway, I would like you to come sometime when I'm along
Yep.
or home, and then I'd like to show you, because I think you probably put it back to what it was.
Well, and I can bring comparables too, because I think there'd be quite a bit of surprise as to, what some of the things in Hillsboro are selling for. And that's why I usually, I didn't bring it tonight, but I usually have a book full of recent sales from the area. And sometimes that's quite illuminating, so I can bring that one too. But yeah, here's a day that works. My schedule is freeing up after the next few days, so if there's a day that works better for you, you can call us or
Is it
stop by.
spur of the moment? Would it work, like, say, on a rainy day or something, or?
Yep.
And
It's
you're
not-
at the courthouse?
Yep, there's not too many days where I would be out yet, because I haven't started my summer work. So unless I was out sick or something, yeah, I don't see any reason why that would work.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to meet with you and show you some things.
Yep, that would work.
All right, thanks.
Randy Clayson, 104 Third Street Southeast. First question before I start on anything, where's the Eco Edition at? Is that over here or is that out here?
That is the one over by.
I'm trying to figure out which
Casey's.
property I'm doing this on.
Yeah, Paco would be over by that road that runs past Casey's. Where's the golf course, not that road.
Then I guess I got no complaints.
And that's all commercial, so I wouldn't be able to answer any specific questions.
It's commercial, I wanted to know if this was my personal house
Oh.
or my business.
Yes,
It
that would
doesn't
be,
specify.
that would be your
It
business.
says Eco Edition, but not Eco Edition.
Is there any other comments from the public? Any other comments? Do I have a motion to close the equalization meeting, unless you have anything else that we need to do?
Nope, that was all I had,
Okay.
unless there's more questions or concerns or anything that I could address at the same time, that was it.
If you guys have any questions or concerns, we can close that part of the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Jason, second by Nicole. Any other discussion? John?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
A yes for me. Motion carries. Thank you.
If you guys have any issues
can do it now, or you guys can wait. We do have to either accept or not accept these values as changed. Or if you want to make any changes to them.
Does it make a difference if she views Rob's at any time if we approve these as is, or?
If he has me over, before county meets, I could get if the value needs to be changed, I can change it and county can approve it. But yeah, I guess it depends on when he's gonna be home, so whether it'll be, need to be changed for next year, whether it'll get changed before county, if it needs to, that, I guess, depends on his schedule.
Because when does county meet?
Not till June, first Tuesday in June, so there's some time yet.
Or we can hold off. It's either up to you guys, but we just have to approve it before, probably by our May meeting, last May meeting at the very latest.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Jason to accept the assessments as presented. Any other discussion? Nicole?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll go into the regular meeting. So we'll start with the minutes from the last meeting, if everybody's had a chance to look at them.
Yeah, I just have two minor corrections under mine. Under the airport, just
Be right back.
some spell check. Review. The hangars is hangars, with an A instead of an E. And then the second bullet is FAA funds instead of FFA funds. Huh? What's that?
Farmers of America?
Oh, future farmers? I mean, if they want to put some hangers in. That's all I saw, so. Mhm.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
I will second that. The short pages list.
There's been a motion and a second to approve meeting minutes with, moved by Nicole with amendments.
Okay.
I'm sorry, motion seconded by Nicole, a motion was by Jason, right?
Jason.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the bills. Everybody had a chance to look at the bills?
Make a motion to approve?
Is there a second? Moved by Nicole, seconded by John. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. The disconnect list. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Jason, seconded by Paul. Any other discussion?
Yes. Some of these are getting pretty big.
Which line are you referring to? The bottom?
You're not worried about them, or?
I'll check into them, but they're typical, I mean, if you look at their current balance, some of them, like take number 38, $560 a month average, that's where it doesn't get concerning if she's overdue 1,140 total. So, I mean, that's 1 month's worth, so. But I will double check into a few of these.
Are they making attempts on some of these?
Number 41 is, that one is consistent with making a weekly payment. That one one wasn't typically added in on your guys' list because of that fact in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I said, well, let's include it because we need full transparency. So, and I didn't catch that, prior to the last month here, so.
Number 45, I assume, that was the property that was brought up in question last.
It was.
So utilities are still on.
I will double check on that one.
But most of them are gaining ground?
Yeah. Yep. Yep, like number 43, that one typically will come in and write a pretty large check, but they should have been on the list routinely, so.
Is that the same, is 43 the same owner from line 40?
Yes, actually, they put a combined check together.
Okay, yeah,
For those.
so I bet if you
Yep.
reach out to them, they'll,
And there's 24 too. There's 3.
yeah, 24.
Yep.
How about 14 and 20 in that move? How do we address, or do you address that?
Well, typically, we're gonna look to see if those are owned properties.
Okay,
If they're owned, then we need to put those on special assessments. Those don't get assessed until October, November. If they're renters, then their landlord is gonna have to deal with it. And if it's a landlord issue, then they get notices as well.
one looks like a renter for sure.
14
14
is-
must be.
20 is, I believe, going through foreclosure.
Okay,
Yeah, 14 is those townhomes.
okay, yep. So then the landlord should have gotten a notice. Yeah, 14 should have gotten a notice. 20, that one will have to go on special assessments if that's how it is.
Also, I did mention if you see 28, we hold the check until that was paid, which we've done that in the past.
That's all my questions.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carried. City Commissioners reports. We'll start with Jason tonight.
Cemetery, we spoke with, Roy, and, the low spot out by the cemetery, they said they could use to put the new power poles that they're gonna be receiving for the electrical stuff. It's down out of the way, there's shrubs around the cemetery, so I don't think it'll be a nice site for anything, so we're gonna store the line poles coming in.
On the new side or the old side?
On the west side, sorry. Right down, if you take, that goes right by that shed. They said was city property, Roy said was city property. You go down into that little spot right before, towards the river.
We also, there's on the north, or on the north side, there's graves and then there's a lot behind that. That might be easier for them to get in and out. I assume the semis.
Where
The
is,
reason we picked one where you come over the railroad track, take left, you wouldn't see it.
Oh.
It would keep it free. You can't see from the highway, you can't see from,
Okay.
it would just kind of keep it basically.
I just thought if we get trucks in there afterwards.
We went and measured it, and they put swing around just right.
Okay.
It's not gonna swing around. So as far as trucks, go.
on the fire department side, they voted to go with, Deidre for their, CMAR, to oversee the construction stuff. Also, they're in the process of replacing 9474
is, we're still waiting on the rate study. I know that Casey's getting closer with them on that. Then, of course, we did send in a list of concerns a little bit that we had on DGR electrical upgrade. So Casey emailed those so that they can include them in our discussion when they come. And of course, Roy is just working on lining up the summer projects if they want to get completed. It's getting kind of late. I'm not sure if you can do it yet, but the lead local class that NDSU puts on, it's over in Mayville. That's on Wednesday, 23rd. And of course, if anybody's still interested in that, I guess we can ask to see if they can still get it, because that is free to the Hillsboro public to go to those classes. So, Trail EDC and Hillsboro EDC are paying for those. And then on beautification, I'm sure Levi will have more on this too. We did have a meeting about Railroad Park and some ideas to do out there. One of the things that we talked about is phasing the projects, and one of them was the fence. And Paul came tonight to visit a little bit about what his thoughts are on that, to kind of get the general, everybody here in the loop on what he's thinking. I have a few questions, and maybe you might have a few questions too, when he goes ahead and tells Kenny.
Yep, you might as well come up, Paul, and talk about that.
He's looking at a grant.
Paul Provost. So, yeah, a couple things that we talked about during the meeting was the different phases for Railroad Park, as well as suggestions to a change of the name for the park. But the thing that we talked about for phase one was ever since we moved to town for the past 3 years, it's been known that this park, whether it's going to be updated or it stays the same, it needs a fence. So in order for, parents to come with their kids and feel safe, there needs to be a fence, and that's always been a requirement by the railroad. So Tara, she went ahead and she got kind of a rough estimate of materials of what it would cost to span for the entire length, which from if I'm not mistaken, it has to stretch the entirety of the park. It would be from the sidewalk to the grain elevator, about 535 feet to 540 feet. So she went ahead and grabbed a rough estimate of what cost of materials would be. And then there's still kind of up in the air of what we would want to do, whether it be wood, vinyl, or like decking for material. But the way that we see it is no matter what the material is, no matter when we start the rest of the project, if we can apply for the Trail County EDC beautification for the grant for $5,000, it's matching, we can acquire those funds and start the fence. And whether, again, we make the rest of the improvements or we only get to the fence for now, it shows improvement. Because again, I've been here for 3 years, and that's one thing that I've heard consistently every year is that park needs a fence. So, yeah.
My concerns is how involved do you guys want to be in what kind of fence they put there?
My personal opinion is, find me a fence that's gonna stand there with the trains that come through and they're constantly shaking that.
To that point, there is a fence that from Tara's hometown, New York Mills, they actually have a wooden fence that divides the park there from the railroad tracks. And it's kind of like an interwoven design, and it's wood. And it's been there since she lived there, and that was 20 years ago. It still requires minimal upkeep, but that's as simple as if a board gets damaged, replacing the board, or restanding it every couple of years. But then that comes with the different materials that we're still trying to decide on. Vinyl requires minimal maintenance, but then if something does get kicked up, causes it to shatter, we would have to replace a panel. Or if it's decking, decking can last up to 25 years. So it would just be how much we can figure out the cost of effectiveness of on the front end, and how much wood, it goes nicer, and it kind of ties into the history of Hillsboro when they brought the railroad here. He brought his brother here, which then brought the lumber yard. So it kind of, by doing some of these like wood material, it kind of ties into the roots of Hillsboro. So there is like a sealant, like a log cabin sealant. Log cabin sealants kind of extend the length of time that you would have to do maintenance versus just regular outdoor decking sealant. So,
A lot of the comments I've also heard in the community, they're saying, why are we thinking about spending money on a park right next to the railroad tracks that you can't even sit and have a conversation with how many trains come through. You got kids playing around. I guess my thought is, why wouldn't we we're gonna put money into that section, why wouldn't we take it and put money into like a nice park like down in Woodland and buy some nicer equipment for them or something like that, that the kids are away and not sitting on a busy street and avenue. The street during the day also is nonstop traffic. That's all I hear is it's a huge kid safety issue to have a park there.
well,
That's what I'm hearing.
and to that, I would say, so I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. One of the things that I've noticed I've been in Phoenix, I've been in California, I've been in Georgia, I've been across the United States. And one of the things that I've noticed is when the cities, mainly like Phoenix area, they expand and they forget about the epicenter. And I feel like it's happening here at a smaller scale, is that this is Main Street, and you look down all the businesses, and there's probably about a dozen vacant buildings. So if we can work on Main Street, which is supposed to be the heart of the community, if we could work on,
I agree with
Yeah.
that, but
we can draw something.
I don't think the park is gonna be business.
Well, and we've talked about several different designs. I mean, there's 3 different designs that was presented, and we're all fairly on a similar page. Things like bringing a gazebo back. When this town was originally founded, there was a gazebo that was right on the intersection over there. So bringing the gazebo back, bringing features that would make it a nice common meeting area for families. Another thing that was talked about but wasn't decided is potentially bringing like small, almost like vendor buildings in that could then be used for farmers markets, events, pop-up markets for vendors that are wanting to start a business but they can't buy a building here in town. So something that can start the ball rolling for their businesses, and by renting those buildings, it can then generate a supplemental income for upkeep for the park.
So I guess the vision for this park would be more so, for community events such as that, it's not geared to having families bring it, they could, but not having the playground set here.
Correct. Yeah, there wouldn't be a playground. I mean, a lot of people come here, they have the events here in the city or the community center, but then this way, like, they wanted to take nice pictures, or if they rented a band or something, or they can put them in the gazebo.
You can't have a band play there, you're never gonna hear it, with as many trains that go through town. You're not gonna want a band there.
I've always thought that one over, like where the sheriff's department is, all that big grass would be great for that kind of stuff, extra parking, vendors, all that stuff, but I don't know who owns that.
That's the sheriff's office,
Is it,
or the county, not the sheriff's office,
mean,
Joe
it's-
County.
my concerns are who's gonna maintain a wooden fence, that's always gonna be a concern, because somebody's gotta maintain it. I would rather maybe see if it's something solid, more metal, but then again, the train goes by 1,000 times a day. I don't know if that's really a good community hub. I think there's gotta be something. The park is difficult too, because it floods every year. It's like one bad thing or another for area. So I don't know.
I guess the devil's advocate to you, Jason, like
walk down to the crosswalk, but they'll cross them right there, all the time.
Paul's the one that wanted to gate some kind of fence that we had it, so he could cross.
Well, and for who would do the upkeep if there was a wooden fence, again, I've seen it work in other communities where, different groups of the community takes on volunteer for like a week, whether it's picking up weeds or trash, something that would take like an hour's worth of time, but you got Boy Scouts, you have FFA, like you have all these small groups that count as community hours, or whatever.
And we are in middle, how fast do the trains go through town?
It varies. I don't know, I'm not familiar with that, it's not my hometown.
Because that's the other thing, what I've noticed, compared to a lot of communities, the trains in this town go through a lot faster than some of the other communities.
And then,
So it might stop kids going across that way. And then they come up this way and around that fence, I would imagine, so
Or they'll just go down further and go around.
that's my concern is how far down.
You'd have to put a fence the entire length of the town if you really want to deter them from looking across the tracks.
But I mean, if I look at a fence, I think metal, just because maintenance, but then again, it's how tight is that metal, because
I mean, I would think.
Lord
the
knows
wood-
if they'll stick their head in it and get stuck.
I would think the wood too, with the trains going through and pelting it with rocks and stuff off the tracks, is gonna bang up the, I don't know how long the fence, a good fence is gonna look good.
well, and so that was the other thing too, is, if the, Art Coalition, one of the things that they had talked about was painting the, train cart. That could be tacked on is if there's any, touch-ups or anything that needs to be done with like the log sealant or anything, then that could be something that the art department can take on. Or any other volunteers, just so it's not the same, dozen people that are volunteering. So if there's anybody that would want to step up to kind of upkeep it. But again, the idea is putting a fence here, it's a park regardless, so making it a park, or a park that has a fence, because that's been the requirement that I've heard ever since, like I said, we moved here. And then, just trying to do something, because again, we look downtown on Main Street every day, and there's a dozen vacant buildings. I'm not saying that it'll draw business, but if the Art Coalition and, the art department can bring in and get the kids to paint and get involved in the epicenter of town, maybe 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now, those kids are gonna grow up and they're like, I did this, I wanna move a business in here, or probably raise my kids here. Because right now it's, Main Street is looking pretty good. I'm not saying that a park's the solution, but it might be a start.
What is the height requirement?
6 foot.
That's required by the road, and
Uh,
If you do the inner width,
the ultimate goal is to see one, not just put a fence, or at least what I see, not just put a fence in, but put one in that's gonna be more of a sound barrier similar to what's on the interstates to help mitigate some of the sound from the trains, and so you can use it a little bit more if needed. But the common theme has not been a kid park, it's been more of central hub, building from the farmer's market, building on where we could have Hillsboro days, those types of things.
More of a nice place. We talked about putting the burrow up over there. We've already got the Christmas tree, but I think it's more of a, I don't know how many of you have been through Castleton, Governor's Park? That's a little bit bigger as far as width goes, but they have a fence right along the track there too, and parking. They just have a little more room, but that's what theirs is. They have just some park benches there, by the governor's side where you can sit. They have a little, not a gazebo, but a little shelter there that they can do little quick things that they want to do or whatever it might be. So but they have one right next to the railroad tracks too there. So
Well, and part of, again, upkeeping the parking, like I said, is even if we don't upkeep the rest of the park, if we still have at least a fence here, the money that we would be applying for the Trail County Economic Development Center, that's available from the county. It's there, so if we can acquire that money and it's matching grant, not just for raised funds, but in-kind hours. So any hours that would be people out there with post hole diggers or screwing in boards or whatever, that all counts towards the matching grant. So the idea is to see if we can get donors, as well as apply for some of these grants that become available for our users. So it basically, by updating the park, we are doing just that, filling in the sand, filling in the holes, because I rolled my ankle out there during the farmer's market too. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know where those holes are in my heart now. So I won't do that again. But that's just it, is we just have to start somewhere. And if we can put a fence, because again, that was a requirement from the railroad, is putting a fence there. We can meet that requirement. We can figure everything else later with, if we were to run electrical or plumbing or gazebo, or if we were to just level everything and relay the sod or whatever and make it an actual pretty thing to look at. Because I agree, the dirt spots and holes out there, they're bad. I agree with you there.
I think that what's showing people off is the park, the little park. And that is a park, but it's more, to me, it's more about having a nice, beautiful, minimum maintenance area that looks nice and shows off our downtown. But maintenance is a big thing to me. If we put a fence, whatever we put there, it has to be, something that's not going to be a lot of maintenance, because I really honestly, I hope we can get people together, but I also look at the fact that the reality is 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, we may not. So, but that's all what we're looking at with the plan. And like you said, the first step of that plan is the fence and putting that in there. So, I'm of a different philosophy. I look at even a chain link fence. If you put a chain link fence, you put a little bit extra support in it, you can put your art painting, you can put a 4x8 on there, and you can paint whatever you want for your art people. But okay, if that art group goes away in 10 years, well, we just take it off the fence and we still have a fence that's there, and you don't have to worry about maintaining it. Whereas I'm a little concerned about the wood side of it, because of the fact that you talk 2 to 5 years, that's a lot of fence. I'm not saying that you wouldn't do it, but what's going to happen if your kids get to be 10 years older and your time is more demanded in other areas too? Or do we feel comfortable that that type of maintenance will be done? And I'm not against it. I just want to ask the question of, how are we going to address those things? I support everything you do. Some of the pictures that we looked at, I think we can do a lot of things to make it really look nice and feel real nice. And that's what my point is more, is we don't want an eyesore in town, we want something that looks nice. And you go to places like Castleton and you see that and you're kind of jealous of the fact that that looks pretty nice. And it's not like it's got people running in it all the time, it's more of a, just makes that part of town look good, they're downtown, because that's on one of their main streets too, so. But how that works out, you gotta make a plan.
What kind of fence is Castleton making?
Just a chain link fence, a black one.
But it's coated black.
It's black.
I mean, yeah, to Paul's point, you know, the hard part about Main Street on Hillsboro is small towns have what's called a walkability score. And I think if I were to score Hillsboro, it's definitely down to the 0. And that's really difficult. But we're also faced with a lot of challenges with that because of railroad and the grain elevators. Like, it's against our way of doing it, but I think there's ways that we can build in different areas of town to pretty it up, and that would be one.
So what I'm hearing is most of you want to see a plan, or would one of you like to make a motion to allow them to apply for the grant?
I don't see a problem with applying for the grant, I don't know if we have enough information, but I do really want to know what everybody's feeling is here as far as what we put there, that everybody's, you know, at least the majority feel that this is what we want to do here, so, and have that discussion, so. And as long as the people that are doing the grant are okay with that, you know, give us that time to do that, it's in their ballpark, I guess, so. But I think we should do something, because that was kind of part of the lease in a way, that we probably should have done sooner than later.
I know we've talked about it, I just couldn't remember if it had something to do with like the distance to the train, or if it was the
It does.
distance this way.
50 feet from center of the track.
So that's not an issue
Roughly
then.
lands like right along that grass center.
Okay. So I
That
mean,
park is about 50 feet away.
they say it's possible, you know, to do. Is that the one in Castleton?
Castleton did that fence because there was no whistle.
Well, they're along the railroad too, aren't they?
Here's the railroad, yep, and here's the fence. And they've got this alleyway, and then here's their park.
That's the governor's park, they got chairs and recognition of the governors there when they're, and you go down a little bit, of course, it's right by their clock too. And if you go down to the west there, Casey, that's where the shelter is, well, it's just
Yep.
kind of a little,
I'll get there.
you'll get there. So, and there's a lot of, this looks like maybe more of a, well, there you got a little bit more greenery there.
Change seasons real fast.
So,
If we had something like that,
There you go.
yeah, and that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea, is like a walking path and everything through there.
I like the bushes and the trees along there, I like that, it kind of gives. a little-
Well,
Or
you
I think they're
probably,
in front
in
of
this
the
case,
fence on the other side.
I would suspect in this case, because we don't have room for the parking like they do, so you would probably put your bushes or whatever, you know, along the fence probably or someplace. But that's the thing is we don't know. We just know we need a fence. And we don't really want to do anything until you get a fence, because whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna rut things up, you're gonna, you know, you gotta get the fence there, and then, because you can make the grass and everything nice, but if you decide to put a walk in there or something like that, or a little shelter, feel like that, well, now you're digging up everything you just spent time to put your grass on. It's nice to have a plan on kind of what are some of the main items you want, you know, before that. And I think the big thing is the fence to start with. You know, if there's funds out there and if they trust that we're gonna do it, which I think we should. And it sounds like he's got kind of a plan on the way to kind of get some of it, a majority of it paid for too, so. As long as we're comfortable with how they're doing it and who's doing it and so on and so forth, you know, I just don't want,
Is that a motion, Paul?
I'll make a motion
Is there a second?
to approve them to go for the grant, that will support them going for a grant for putting a fence of some sort up there, and we'd be working with that group.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Nicole. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Nicole?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jason?
No.
Paul?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Do you have anything?
I think I got everything, yep. That's all I have.
Nicole?
Hmm?
Do you have anything?
Oh. It's me.
It's you.
It's me Me, okay, I have nothing for the airport, but I did run across an article today. I didn't know this was a thing, but just so everyone else is aware too, there's a comment period that opens on the proposed 25,000 cow dairies environmental permit, and I didn't know if anyone knew anything about this or if anyone's brought anything forward, but I was reading in here that anyone with concerns about handling or other issues associated with what could become our largest dairy are now able to submit comments to the state. The North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality opened a comment period Friday on the proposed facility to be operated. This comment period runs June 2nd and includes a public hearing May 20th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Hillsboro High School gym. And then there's comments that can be submitted through the DEQ website. But I didn't know, and so I thought I would just mention it in case somebody knew more about this or wanted to submit any comments regarding that. And other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay. Thank you, Nicole. So Paul kind of touched most of it on beautification, but it looks like we may have HBA members back on potentially with their approval at their next meeting. So.
Correct.
And that would be Tara and Paul have volunteered for that. And if you remember, one member was supposed to be from the HBA group for that commission. The
On
pool.
the beautification?
Beautification.
Gotcha.
The pool stuff is scheduled and all the supplies were ordered, and I think we had to order about 1,500, if I remember right. Yeah. We only had to order a few cans of paint, and then the sealant and primer from another company was a little bit more expensive, but it was about 1,400, so that would be added on with the pool. And I don't believe we're gonna do the little pool, so that'll save some of what we had requested this year. Planning and zoning met, and they are working forward through all their ups and downs. I did reach out to Mike Levins, and he did submit a report for Bruce, who was the other building inspector for us, Bruce Bauer Sox. And Bruce, they gave it to us on Wednesday. I got it to Bruce, talked to him on Friday. He was gonna look over it. I hadn't had a chance yet. And then we can start the process on 118 First Street Southwest. But there was definite issues that would violate the ordinances. Excuse me, it's 105. And it looks like back in 2021, we did this of a blighted building as well. And they were served notice on 6/30 of 2021. Or they had until 6/30, but they were notified on the 24th of May, 2021.
This same address?
Same address. So we'll work with Bruce to get it, but he didn't feel there'd be an issue. He just had to go through the steps.
Was this the property that they wanted the power or something turned on, they were gonna try and fix something, or was that the property, or
That was the property, yes.
had water or something, I'm not sure what all it was. Apparently they didn't do anything with it.
Mm-mm. No, and looking at the pictures, it's gotten worse from 2021, so.
Working.
So we'll work with JR and with Bruce to make sure we have it sent out when it needs to be, so we can have the public hearings. All right. That's all I have for tonight, and then Jay, do you have anything different from what's on the agenda? JR?
How about, that's good.
So we
I
don't,
do have a question for Jeff.
so we're good with, both the beautification committee and the planning and zoning being full now? Awesome.
Any mention about the trial piece for the substation? How is that negotiations going
Are you talking with the one
for the electrical project?
the one from the one that we made the offer and accepted?
Yep.
Still waiting to get the paperwork from the seller.
Okay,
I'll reach out to him again. He had stopped in, he said he'd get it to me, and
okay. That's why I just haven't heard from
otherwise I have
us,
everything
so-
good to go, but I'm waiting for, I think it's the cell tower lease,
Okay.
he's trying to get a copy of, so we can know where that is for Verizon or who that is.
So you were gonna reach out to him again?
I'll reach out to him again, yep. Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that update.
Casey?
I have a few things. On Friday, borrow this one.
Yep.
Adam Hirsch submitted a demo grant application after I had sent the packet out to you guys. It looks like this. If you guys would like to review it and approve it tonight, great. If you'd like to hold off until the next meeting, just let me know. But I thought I would just add it in since he submitted it, so.
So he's just asking for like 2,000 to take that building down,
Just the garage.
just the garage, yeah.
Which he submitted everything else, that he came to the planning and zoning, and was requesting that planning and zoning give a variance because he's past the 10-foot line and they weren't willing to do that. The old shed, or the old garage was not placed properly.
Okay,
He wanted to build a new one, they said he needed to move it.
so he needs to move it because,
He needs to move it, he said, well, I need more money, and he went off on a few different things, and he
Okay.
asked if he applied for the demo grant, and he said no. Said that is one thing that you could do, to mitigate some of your costs, so. So everything else has been submitted, but,
okay, so this is the only thing he's asking for from us.
correct.
Okay.
So if you guys are comfortable with it, I'm requesting a motion to approve that grant request. If you'd like me to table it until the next meeting, just let me know.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved by Paul, seconded by John. Any other discussion?
They need any of these filled out down here, or are we good with that?
They will once
Once it's approved?
everybody, all those different departments approve it.
Perfect, okay. Good,
Nicole?
yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. My next item, I would like to formally request to hire Chris Smallback as the deputy auditor. And I would like to request, that he be paid $24.50, which would align with his current, wages at his current job. He'll increase after his 6-month probation to meet what he currently makes, if all goes well. So, request to hire Chris at 24 and a half.
What would be the go up to?
Per the handbook,
That's not in there.
isn't it? Okay, it's 25.25. Yep, I thought there was a 75-cent increase in
Haven't
there.
used 3 years, not there.
Okay, so no less than 25.25 after 6 months.
Do I have a motion for that?
Make the motion to approve.
Nicole makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jason. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, guys.
And he's starting May,
May 6th, so we just double checked. It was gonna be May 5th, but his current employer requested to keep him one extra day. So Tuesday, May 6th will be his very first day.
okay.
And he's gonna come hang out with us a little bit this week and a little bit next week after he's done with his other job. My next item is a food truck license request. The current food truck application, was reviewed by, Tara and Paul a little bit after they had complaints about it because of the additional, insurance requirements on it. I looked into the Fargo and Grand Forks food truck licenses. It doesn't appear that those two cities require the amount of insurance that the city of Hillsboro does. And due to this, we're looking to have the application changed and have it be a little easier to work on. Paul, if you want to say anything else on that one?
So for the different farmers markets and for Hillsboro Days, we've already had one cancellation of food truck. We've had, and two others that are saying that they might cancel because the application for the food truck is more extensive than any other city, including Grand Forks and Fargo, that they've applied for. So basically, if we could just simplify the application process, because, again, I've already touched on this, there's a limited amount of spaces to eat here in town, and the idea is to give people variety, so we'd love to see more variety of different food vendors or whatever come into town and provide different food options for the people of Hillsboro. So if we could simplify the application process, we might be able to keep those last two applicants, but we for sure lost one for Hillsboro Days. We still have one more for Hillsboro Days, and then the other farmers markets still have their own events because of the extensive application process.
So is it the food application or is it the insurance? So I'm getting confused on the,
Certificate of general liability insurance, 250,000 per individual, 1 million per ordinance limits. That's part of the, please provide the following documents: health insurance, health license, sales and tax permit, and this insurance, proof of insurance coverage for food truck, proof of fire and safety inspection for truck, written authorization from property owner for truck, operation of food truck. So there's 8 of them there, different things. I don't know which ones they're having a problem with. Obviously, the insurance is one of them.
What, JR, did this not follow the state, or the state food truck ordinance?
that's what I'm wondering.
It followed that one, right, so what we borrowed from a couple cities. All the stuff on there is standard except maybe that commercial general liability and $1 million policy, which is just a standard CGL, but I think that's the one that's at issue.
But in order to do this, we would have to change our ordinance. It is not part, so we can't just change an application.
I'm curious, since it's Grand Forks and Fargo have internal health inspection departments, whereas we have state here. And I think, I'm curious to know if that's something that we're required from that, or if it's our own, I don't see why we couldn't
It's our-
make it our own, can we?
It's in
What is the rate they play in Grand Forks, and what kind of level of liability they have to have?
That I don't know off the top of my head, but from the screenshot that I got was, we bought our food truck brand new from Springfield, Missouri, and it does not meet all the requirements for North Dakota, so we get temporary licenses for events, so we can not, or, so we are not sure if we will be able to come on this date if things aren't changed.
They do business elsewhere in North Dakota?
They are doing businesses elsewhere.
Yeah, because they go all over.
But it's curious, because you said they're doing per event, so it's not a licensed food truck.
As far as I'm aware, it is a licensed food truck.
But you said they get it per event.
They have to.
No, most food trucks would have it licensed for the full year.
No, when they, well, the food license itself, yes, but when they move from area to area, they just get permits for those areas. Unless we're talking about two different things, but
Well, there's a temporary food service license that they could be getting from the
there's
state.
that, yeah, it's like the license, that's annual, but then there's the local where they get permitted out to go from place to place to place. And some of the small towns don't have those policies in place, but Grand Forks and Fargo do, because they're bigger. Whereas I don't think the rural areas really do.
But going back to my question, what are these 8 things do they have an issue with besides the insurance? this is different than what you have up there, what I have.
Yeah, I'm saying she's got one,
I've
he's got one.
Oh,
Yeah, I like,
Fargo?
She's got the Fargo, he's got the Grand Forks.
Yeah, this is us, this is the.
But I mean,
Oh,
like,
90.
things like, with the recommendation for restaurants that are 200 feet away from where they're planning on setting up shop.
This is our ordinance.
I mean, if we need to put like a permanent file on place saying like, go ahead for any food truck that comes through here,
Okay.
I mean,
It has the
we would
state.
just like to see more variety to give the people like more options. I'm not familiar, I can't say yes or no, I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
Well, I don't know if
I
it
can
is.
say yes, but then somebody's gonna fact check me.
That was a request of, at the time, when the when this went into play, it was a request of the businesses in town to make sure that they didn't come within 200 feet of their business.
So they could come when they had a permission.
If they had permission, yeah.
yeah. So up on the screen is your guys's, yeah, this is you guys. So this is what we ask, and then there's the permit to go with it. Must be notarized and dropped off.
Okay.
Yeah, because so the third one, I'll have a
Oh, sorry.
screenshot, but I was told that they were kind of confused on the packet of, do they need to get it, like approved beforehand, before they notarize it, after they notarize it? So there's just a lot of questions on the order of processes that they need to go through, like the, fire inspection and stuff like that, but
All of those should be completed ahead of,
Right.
like, all these things that we're asking for is no different. At the time, it was no different than what the state was asking for. So we basically just asked that those individuals that were coming to town submit, we wanted to verify that they were actually a licensed food truck. That was the issue. We had food trucks coming into town, no license, no insurance, no nothing, and serving to the public.
right, but these are established food trucks that.
Okay, and we're still asking the same thing. And none of this is any different than what the state application is asking for.
But-
So that's, I don't see where the issue is. If they have their state license, all they have to do is submit that, provide it to the city one time, and they're done.
Oh, you mean like they're licensed in North Dakota? That would be my question is, are they not licensed in North Dakota? Because that's the only way that prevents them is not having the license from the North Dakota Department of Health application.
These are established food trucks.
Then they should be easily be able to, because this is the first year, and we've had this since 2001,
Yeah.
2,
But, and it was January 22 when we had first reading.
right? And nobody's brought an issue of this before. And have you ever heard anything of it, Casey?
I haven't, but, you know, I just spent my first year dealing with food trucks last year, so.
But looking at the state application, I mean, ours is very short compared to what, and it's just asking, right, and it's just asking for the same thing that the state is asking for.
I guess, I mean, we can get more information from what exactly it is, like, that they apply for other cities larger than Hillsboro, like Grand Forks and Fargo, and see what it is, to simplify it, but, again, they're saying that Hillsboro is asking more than even the larger cities.
Well, no, I know, I have contacts in the city of Grand Forks, so I'll give them a call and ask them, you know, a little bit more clarification on if there's something they're supposed to apply for that's different than their normal process. I just wonder if this isn't a city versus state, because Hillsboro doesn't have its own internals, but Grand Forks and Fargo do. I'm wondering if that's where that difference is. So
So if
we go by the
If
state.
they turn in their state license, then everything else is good, because it kind of went back to, we kind of had the same issue with the liquor vendor as well, a wine vendor, because the city was asking for specific requirements from that wine vendor, but that wine vendor has a state distribution license, and so he submitted that, and then things were changed to match that. So I guess if somebody has a state license to serve food
copy of what they already have.
Okay.
Right.
The main purpose was to make sure they're licensed through the state, as well as that they have a sales and use tax permit, because we're bringing our new sales taxes in place.
Right.
And they have to collect on those.
Right.
But to
We
the,
desire nothing new, is the way I phrase it.
Well, it says right there that the license is subject to inspection and approval of the health department as well as the fire department. That's Grand Forks is. So what do we, that to me looks like it's on.
right, yeah, the only way they can operate is,
Grand Forks, I
They
think,
have
is
to
their
have
separate home
license.
inspection.
right,
So we don't even have to inspect, we
yes.
just, they provide proof that it's been done somewhere else, and then we're able to allow it.
We could do a little bit more digging because we're just going off of what the other food trucks, we lost one and two of them have said that they're possibly not going to do anything because it seems more expensive here in Hillsboro than it does in the larger cities. So I guess we can do a little bit more digging on our end too and see what exactly it is and pinpoint it. I think the insurance thing, there's 2 insurance questions that's on there that are basically roughly around the same guidelines.
Yeah, to note, it should be clarified.
Yeah, proof of insurance, certificate of general liability insurance, so basically,
So just that they have it, but there's no, is there a minimum?
Yeah, but just the standard 250 a mil.
Oh,
And then
That's
insurance
not it.
coverage is the actual food truck, the truck itself, the vehicle insurance,
okay,
which they
Okay.
need to have by state law.
I'm
So
curious what they
it could be that CGL, maybe there's food trucks that don't have that, which is maybe that's not a state requirement, I don't know, I would assume they have it, but
well,
Some
I'll ask
businesses don't
Grand
have that.
Forks because,
It seems pretty,
pretty standard.
standard.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
Homeowner insurance is sometimes more than that now.
Yep. Right.
yes, the reason why this came about is because if it was one person saying, well, this is too much paperwork, then we'll find another food truck, but the fact that we've got 3 and they're established food trucks, that's why it was something that we wanted to address because we don't want to deter food trucks from coming here to town and again, providing that variety of people that have options.
But we also don't want people coming to
Correct.
town that are not following.
That are not licensed.
Not licensed, not doing,
We want to reach out to any food truck that isn't established or licensed or well-known.
but that falls back on liability of the city if we weren't doing anything, and we were negligent and allowed somebody to come in. Now the city could be liable for X things.
Another thing, 3 and 4 would be usually handled by an insurance station. CGLs are pretty easy to come by.
I'd be curious to hear what more information they have as far as what's a lot more work here than other places, just to see what they have to say.
I'll try to find out that for you.
Because to me, this is something you'd have, and you just take this and no matter where you go, it's a matter of just, you're talking 1 page here of actually handwritten stuff for the most part. Unless of course you're close within 200 feet of someplace.
The Grand Forks and in part of the questionnaire that they fill out along with submitting
they do,
items.
they're pretty tight up there. Okay. Grand Forks is really vicious on the food stuff.
And again, the city, like Hillsboro, could have a little bit easier of a process, but I guess it's the way that it's presented too, so I don't know how, if it's just that it looks like it's a lot more than what some of the cities are presenting. So I can pinpoint what exactly it is and then kind of try to get clarification from you guys as well, and then try to rectify that before we lose anymore.
Yeah, just be
We
curious.
can't fix anything, we don't know what the problem is.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, because we want them to come.
Thank you for all this work you do for the town, too.
Thank you.
Just do-
Anything else, Casey?
4 more things, I think.
What?
You think?
I bullet pointed everything in the email. If you guys didn't read it, well, I figured. I'll go over it again. Just as a friendly heads up, Paul had talked about the MRES rate study. More documents were sent to MRES for your revenues and expenses last year. There's a few things that Tim and I need to discuss just to see if we have things on trend or not. So There's a strong possibility that they will be recommending an increase mid-year for the electrical study if you guys do want to move forward with any of the phases of DGR's report. So just giving you a heads up on that. The 2024 audit has started. The formal audit week is June 23rd through June 30th. We are taking requests for new budget pay members. So if you're interested in budget pay, get a hold of Abby or myself in the office. We'll put you on the list and we'll get you info. I will be gone Tuesday afternoon through Thursday for the MRES lead course, and I am taking vacation May 7th through May 16th. I'll answer emails in the morning, so if you guys need anything, just let me know. And that's all that I have. 5 things.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the sheriff's? Jason? Steve?
I just had one thing, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is on. We have current task order for permit review, and last year we didn't have any building permits, so we didn't have any cast. But the fire department site going into final design, I'd like your approval for me to set up a project for the fire department site plan review, where we do just look at the fire department has their own engineering company that's putting a site plan together. We're just gonna review it for the city side of it, make sure public utilities are taken care of and elevations, storm water and stuff like that. I just need your approval to move forward with that task order. For the residential building permits, we had a fixed fee of $800 when you did residential ones. The commercial ones, you just do them cost plus, because you don't know how much involvement we're gonna have, how many meetings it's gonna be. But I'll try to be diligent on future approval.
Any questions, or do I have a motion to approve?
So do you, like, for this, because they have their own engineers, you basically just kind of go in and just make sure that what they're finding is the same as what you're finding, or?
Yeah, we've been in discussion with them last week, talking about public utilities and the best way to hook them up and stuff. And then one of the things that's going to be important thing to review is the drainage on that site. There's a low spot in the middle of that site, and then downstream for there, it follows the road around to the east and then to the north. There, we have a lot of drainage problems. We don't want any additional stormwater flow going that way. It might cause additional problems, so we need to make sure that they're
Current issues.
taking care of the stormwater, not pushing everything downstream.
I'll make a motion to have them do this, to review the plan.
The task order?
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Jason. Is there any other discussion? John?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries.
Thanks. That's all I have.
What kind of timeline do they have on that, do you know, where they're at with that?
What's that?
Or do you know where they're at with that, or what's the timeline on that, or what's?
We got some preliminary site plans from them, but right now they're trying to find out the best way to do some stormwater on site. We might move the building around, they might be back up with a little more land. They have to push it back for some ponding property.
Interesting.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about it, that way they have it for the meeting. But Steve was asked to be on a call with their engineers, and then Steve looked me in for planning and zoning. And, like he said, they presented plans, asked us what needed to be done and what we wanted. The question was brought to us that said, you know, is the city hooking up the water and sewer? Meaning, are we providing water and sewer to the building? And I said, I don't believe so. I said, we can't afford that. They said, well, we thought there was a pool going in there potentially. I thought you were going to put in a potential lift station, I said, right now, a lift station of that size is gonna be $1 million. I don't think that we could afford to do that. They came back with a couple plans for the stormwater, for their runoff, because we're concerned about the water running down to other parts of town. So whether it be Loyal Avenue or backing up on this side, based on the stormwater assessment. So this task order is for them to look and see how that water is going to affect.
Just
the-
out of curiosity, I don't mean to cut you off, but just out of curiosity, is there a reason why nobody, I mean, is that maybe the reason why nobody's ever built there? And why we put snow there every year? Because we do have those homes along Loyal Avenue back there where, you know, that some of them unfortunately have had water issues.
It could be, because there's, on the model, it said 3 to 4 inches that is backed up in there. And the other place that they talked about putting a potential storm pond would be where one of our electrical lines are, what it could move, but it also backs up behind the church. And that also is another area of stormwater.
Yeah, so that property is really low. The ditch, when we get big storm events, the ditch fills up and it backs up onto that property. And then the sanitary sewer is a long ways away. They have to put a sanitary out there. And the water, closest water is, I think at the water tower there, which is still a run. But probably the best way to look at it at this point, if it's not developed, there's probably a reason that
I was just
cost of
curious.
utilities or something.
I've never heard of one thing wanting to go out there. I don't,
Just a pool.
just a pool. So,
But there's
I've never heard of anything that was ever shot down, because really, to be honest, water has only been talked about in the last few years or so. I would guess anybody that was looking at doing it, never even thought about that at that point, so.
Yeah, right, never considered the stormwater part, just
Yeah.
drinking water and sanitary.
Right, which they wanted, 6-inch line, is that what they wanted? Or
That was bigger than that.
For the water, yeah.
for the water, yep. And
Without-
so, after that meeting, I talked to Steve a little bit, trying to figure out what we could do or what we should do, what we need to find out. Ultimately, you know, we didn't know how much the stormwater is going to affect, because that is not going to be a drainage area. It's not gonna be a storm pond like it is today. So that means we might have to look at the 2 other places to help us alleviate some of this, maybe sooner than later. And so, and that would be the one by the substation and the one by the school. So which I had reached out and talked to John Dryberg, asking if they would entertain the idea of a storm pond there as a school, and he didn't think there would be an issue. And I said we could probably design it so that it would be big enough so that if and when they wanted to do a school, that it would be size big enough so they didn't have to add another storm pond on above and beyond.
Does it only need one?
It would only need one, because it's, the policy that planning and zoning is looking at is whatever you had pre, you have to have post. So if you build a new building on an open field, whatever water would have been there originally, you have to be able to hold that back so that it doesn't add into the system. So if the school built on or added something there, there'd have to be size big enough, or they'd have to have a pond. So if we just made the pond bigger, then it would be sized big enough. But that's a long conversation. The other thing I asked him, and I said, this is a long, like, this isn't even close, just would you entertain it? If the project got too much there, would there be a possibility of the fire department moving over in that area just in case? So there, because we didn't know what the potential estimated cost of all this other stuff was gonna do.
I guess my question on that is how come I haven't been informed of any of this until I got an email from Jake? Since it's my portfolio.
Because it's hadn't worked through. Literally, we were,
You're going and asking the school for a possibility of them putting a fire hall there. That's my portfolio.
I'm sorry, Jason, but I was talking about other things with,
You did it with the sheriff's office since the last meeting, and now you've done it with my fire portfolio.
how? Did I I meet with the sheriff's office.
You went and emailed Steve on something that already was being addressed.
I asked the
And
question.
you didn't ask me a single thing. You didn't send them to me. No, I saw your email. There's not a question. I don't understand why my portfolios keep getting locked up.
So that's where it's at. Anything else for Steve? That pretty much sum it, Steve?
Yep, yep, that covers it.
Okay.
There, you know, the Lowry Engineering is the one doing the engineering for the fire department. We let them, you know, they're gonna need, putting all the details together for the site plan. We just wanna review it to make sure that it, yeah, it's gonna be good. So,
If there is future development there, though, how much is that gonna affect that? Basically eliminate it? Are we gonna have that even in the conversation? If something is developed later there?
There is, they showed some exhibits and they overlaid the pool on there. I can show you that. There's still room for the pool area.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they got.
I can forward that to you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. All right, next is the Hubert Oy bids.
So is there an answer to my question?
What's your question?
Why is my portfolio keep getting locked up?
Because I've been asked questions and I'm trying to answer them.
When somebody asks me about electrical, I say you need to speak to Paul. When somebody asks me about water, I say you need to speak to Nicole, that's her portfolio.
One, on the police department portfolio, on the dog. In, for example, it is written in Century Code, it is my job to make sure that the ordinances are being enforced. I'm asking, in that case, are our ordinances being enforced? And in this case, if it is a vicious dog, the dog should be out of the community. Plain and simple. It doesn't need to be destroyed, nothing else. If it is a vicious dog, it needs to be gone. Is that happening? Yes or no?
It's going through the process. Every person is entitled to due process. Do you understand what due process is?
I do understand what due process
And you
is.
can't just go around deciding who's guilty and who's not guilty. The court will decide that when it gets through that part of the process.
But that's on the person, not on the dog. Did the dog attack the
Dog
human?
is property of the person.
Correct.
And I'm not gonna get into exact discussions on that call because it's an open case. Because if you had any brains whatsoever, you know that that can't be discussed until they get through the process.
So that is the
We
one.
live in a community, I don't know if you understand the system, but everybody is entitled their day in court and their time to argue their side of the story. Plus, our decisions are not made until the actual facts of the investigation are gathered and proposed to the attorneys. Okay? We also, if you read any type of Century Code, since you want to go there, we cannot take any actions directly on any charges that are below a misdemeanor or below. We have to physically witness it to immediately file a charge. So maybe you should get educated before you start to try to argue with other people. My simple question was, why, out of all the people that have portfolios here, why is it mine that always continue to get locked up?
I apologize that it happened, but unfortunately,
This is the second time you've apologized now, and I've gone back and I've given you the benefit of that apology each time.
and the answer is, on this last one, it came into play because of planning and zoning, which is my portfolio.
Then, if it also involves mine, shouldn't you reach out to me?
I hadn't gotten that far because I didn't have the answers.
But instead I hear from my portfolio that sends me a message that they're upset.
Which I,
And I'm out in the dark again.
and 90% of the time I'm out in the dark on a lot of things too. That's the way this job works sometimes.
Not on your own portfolios.
Sometimes I am, yes.
Nobody else here on this commission continually gets involved with other people's portfolios. And it's always mine. Do you feel I'm not doing a good enough job?
I've never said that, and nor do
Then
I
why
think.
do you not trust me to handle my portfolio?
why do you not bring my portfolio information to me like you do everybody else? Don't have, we're supposed to work as a team here.
We are, but it also doesn't help if you come and chastise, and you could have asked a question beforehand, Jason, instead of coming in and arguing about it.
I asked the question when the question got brought up.
And you could have talked about it before.
I said you were responsive, you put responded. Where should I bring it up? If I can't bring it up here, if you're not gonna respond to my messages. And again, the fire department was a whole nother topic. Why did you not? Why? Nicole reaches out to me if she has a question, John does, Paul does. That's all I'm asking.
I will try to do better in the future.
And I agree, that's all I want. I appreciate that.
Jay? You want to talk about the bids for the Hubert Oil?
I don't know if you've had any chance to look at any of the proposed spots that I brought up. And I guess this is what I found would be the spots that would be probably the hardest for me to get the mastic. So I kind of tried to divide that out and find the worst spots that need to be addressed with these guys. And then I sat down with Casey and all the questions. Get as much done as we possibly can with my budget. And this is what I come up with. The worst spots that we can address with mastic.
What are the, do you know, like, the projected dates? Like, are they meant to, like, be done all, like, one location at a time kind of thing throughout the summer?
I would assume it'll all be done at one time. The
Okay.
overlay probably would be done before it. And then they would come in with their other machines to do the rest. They'll do it all at once because they have to bring them in,
Okay.
knock them out. The sooner we get an okay, the sooner we can nail down the date.
Well, just so we know, like, to put out, announcement ahead of time.
Yes.
If they're gonna do them all at once.
And last year was a learning curve where we didn't
Well,
get
that
after
was
that.
kind of,
So that's another thing too. We'll see.
that was kind of an instant thing.
Is it the whole width that you're performing, or just parts? I assume Caledonia, 3rd to 5th is the whole street. Gutter to gutter.
Are we talking by the school and
This one over here by the church, so the school.
the one by the church would be from the highway about 142 feet out, which would tie in where it starts ending and breaking up. That one, the outsides are so tore up and they're so rippled.
No, is it like, are we doing full wide, or are we just doing?
Some of them are full line, some of them are 10 feet.
Okay. So it just varies in those areas?
Yeah, I have each of them highlighted, if you guys want to look them over.
So with this mid-states rental, are you doing the, instead of the company?
That's the machine that they're gonna be renting in June.
We already got the material for that. This is also budgeting to, that's the rental of the machine.
Nice.
We already have the material.
And they're saving $1,100 by going to get it instead of having it delivered. So,
Nice. That's a lot lower than I thought it was gonna be, so.
That also works if we were to ever decide this machine really works, we can get ahead of the streets and stuff. We can take that rental on the purchase of the machine also.
And then I assume the chip seal is over all the new stuff this year, plus what we did before?
All of last year and 2 years before that.
So
They
they
wanted to sit a good year, if not two,
Oh,
before
to do another layer?
to do the layer on top to protect it. So we would not overcover the stuff we do this year. So I'm trying to get ahead of that
numbers. So out of Jay's current budget at the end of March, he has $111,387 left over in maintenance and supply. He's willing to forego repairs and contractor maintenance and have those amounts be included in these expenses. We couldn't figure out how to afford them all out of this fund because you're still gonna need dollars for gas and fuel and gravel and sand. So the request is to, thank you, the request is to do all of the items that have a yellow arrow next to them to be paid out of streets. And then Caledonia East and First Street to be paid out of municipal infrastructure fund. And that one's $21,500. That was just our initial thought. Yep, so.
I don't remember, you told me how much there was before 53.
Yeah,
There.
there is a very fair amount. You guys just got a nice big disbursement. I'll find that here quick. Yes, yep. Yes, so after this last disbursement of $255,351, the total in that fund for April will be $497,054.90. So you've got quite a bit in that fund.
That's not 453.
Yep. 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 And I didn't want to tap in it too much, just because in case you guys have other ideas for infrastructure needs, then you still have a bulk of it there. So all of these projects could easily be taken out of that fund, but if you guys have a water or sewer project or electrical, what have you, then it's still there. So, and for documentation purposes, it's kind of nice having dollars spent out of the street fund to justify what we should kind of plan for future years. So that was another reason why I suggested to pay for a majority of these out of streets.
Any other questions?
Have you had time to sit down and look at what you think for a long-term idea?
Not extremely. I guess I was just more, just into the new system. I was really getting hard this year to do as much building as I could. When I get a grasp this fall, hopefully I can sit down and do a long term. So no, not really.
That's fine, I was just curious.
Yep. We're also looking at drainage stuff. Maybe just a couple of things next year. Try to keep a little bit off the side in case it's needed.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had talked a little bit to Casey about this. I think while you're doing that, we need to, because you won't be doing this till June, right? The patching.
The patching's all of June.
I think we need to somehow do some type of a marketing of some sort, to let people know that, because I can just hear people coming, why aren't they filling the pot of this? Well, that's why, because we're gonna be doing this. I think we should try and figure out something, I don't know what that might be, where you could educate the community on this and what we're planning on doing, so.
I agree too, because I'm purposely not filling some of them right now
Right.
because you'll go backwards on our time.
Right.
If we fill them right now, we gotta clean them all out. And if we can put something out there that say, hey, we are gonna address this, but this is the reason.
Just something simple as that we're planning on this new machine and filling the holes, and if we fill them now, it just adds a lot more time or something, just something.
Yeah, we won't get it.
Right, we're
Our
gonna
time
get it
frame's
done.
gonna get short so bad.
Because because people that aren't watching city council meetings aren't gonna know what's going on, they're just wondering, well, why aren't you guys killing properties?
Yeah, so that would be a problem.
And whether that be on social media, or, I don't know, but that would be something for the people that are in the higher pay grades in the media, to figure that out, how that's best done.
You said city after me.
Is that?
You said city after
matter of letting people know. It's really not a, you have to go real deep into it. I don't think it's just a matter of that if they were wondering why potholes aren't being filled, that we have a different system that we're going with this year, and we can't start until June. And something simple as that, and that's when potholes will be start being filled in. So, and then we'd have to, you could even go, so the next step would be to say, well, we don't want to fill them now because it increases the time. We'd have to tear them all apart.
Not to mention, we'd be spending a lot of money on
Patch.
material, which, correct, got that in there. Actually, maybe mastic.
Anything else, Paul? Do we have a motion to approve these?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Nicole, seconded by Paul. Is there any other discussion?
What did you say, did you have the time?
We won't know until we can actually get approved. And then I can sit down with the lawyers. He's gonna come out, visit with me, we'll go over everything together, and then we can nail down the time. The sooner we get it approved, the sooner we can get it to town.
Yeah, just make sure they get like a couple days, heads up.
Last year, we did have it set up for them, but then the railroad jumped in, and
Yeah.
we were waiting on them, and then they backed out, so we could have had it done a month earlier. We're not gonna do that again.
Yeah, just so they're aware.
Any other discussion? John?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And yes for me. Motion carries. We'll go down, since you're up here, Jay, we'll go down to the public works summer help, which you guys met, I assume.
If you have any questions, why I'm asking, why you bring it up,
Yep, so Jay and I talked earlier today, Zach as well. We conducted interviews for all who signed up for an interview slot. There is concern right now with summer help. There's one returning, but we're not sure on his time frame. He is looking for full-time employment in his chosen career.
just graduated.
Yep, just graduated college. Yep. But yeah, he's committed to Hillsboro, but if he has a offer for a full-time position elsewhere, he's gonna take it, so. So there is that concern. So the request right now to you guys is to hire 4 total, like last year. One being Greggy, who isn't, not sure on his schedule, but having a third, or a fourth, excuse me, to be there in case Greggy does leave fairly soon in the summer.
And if for that 1 month, we have all 4 there. This way I can keep 2 kids with the mastic with me, continually flowing, keep 2 of them tarring, because it's been a real time crunch getting that tarring done alone. And those 2 can also do the mowing without pulling the other guys off this mastic. So we can just continue to do that.
Yep. And we had discussed, realigning some of the overtime hours that were allotted for Public Works crew, to supplement, if need be, since Greggy's position is kind of up in the air, dependent on what he is looking at, so.
I think I'd be okay if we took, if one of these we spent more on, out of the municipal infrastructure fund for the paving. And then we'd have some more funds cleared up for the street improvement on doing the Damascus.
Current request is to hire 4 total to start the summer out with. That's what the request is.
We got 3 right now, and we're going to keep that 4th to keep some of mowing with this machines.
Who's all working on the machine then? You and 2 guys and then this,
The most efficient way would be to have 5 guys, me and Billy and, on
make $15 an hour, and sometimes they work a 40-hour work week, sometimes they don't. So it's,
They go on vacation, they go on trips. I just want to make sure we're, got,
Do you have somebody in mind for all these spots?
yeah,
Applied?
I got some good applicants.
yeah,
We're doing okay with it.
yep, interviews went really well.
Any other questions, or do I have a motion to approve either 3 or 4?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and move it forward if we figure out how you're gonna pay them. If you're gonna change this 14,000 and put that on the other account under 453. It'll be contingent on making sure that we have the funds available to do that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Or we could do the mid-states rental possibly, if that would be covered, because that'd be another option too. That'd be the smaller amount.
Can I crunch numbers and get back to you guys like Paul said? Yep.
Would it be possible to take another overtime thing?
Yeah, it would be. So every public works employee was allotted 200 hours of overtime. Quite a few are, actually every single public works employee is paid well over 15. The closest would be 21 an hour. So it, yeah, we could work with it.
Put them out there, or is it okay?
Yep. You hope that next winter won't be too terrible right off the bat. So, knock on wood.
Hope we make this up for January.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, that's what was initially discussed. But yeah, we could do it either way, whichever.
Is there any other discussion? Nicole?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Next, we have a request for EMS week for road closure on the 20th from 4:30 to 7:30, and that is the street right to the east of the hospital.
Yeah, I think they had this last year, right? If I remember
Not
correctly.
last year, but it's been before.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Nicole. Any other discussion? John?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Any yes for me? Motion carries. We have the credit card policy.
Per our auditors, they suggested that we get a credit card policy. Not the end of the world, but just something nice to have documented. We currently don't have anything documented for like appropriate use and that kind of thing. So I meant to talk about it last meeting, forgot about it, so I put it on the agenda for this meeting. If it's something that you guys would like to approve tonight, great. If you want to take some time and look it over, I am completely comfortable with that too. So,
Where did this come from? Did you write this up, or is this something that kind of been out there and other communities using? Or?
so I did borrow it from a resource that Levi found from another city.
Have you made any changes you felt needed to be made, added or taken out?
I did. Yep, I did. I switched out like certain, like on the policy statement, City of Hillsboro Commission and Auditor will have use of bank-issued credit cards to purchase needed services and supplies. That was, City Commission or Finance Director, some other type thing like that. So I switched out a lot of those. But, for the most part, it had the same rules that, our guys abide by. It's got what you can buy, what you can't buy. If something happens, we recognize that mistakes happen and you use the wrong card, you gotta pay it back as soon as you notice. Just different things like that.
I like that there is a policy for this. Definitely auditing standpoint and everything too. That's good.
Anything you need to review on this, JR?
Does it look okay?
Yeah, it looks like it's,
I'll make a motion to approve the credit card and store credit policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Nicole. Any other discussion? Jason?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes,
Nicole?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries.
thanks for doing that, Kate.
Thank you, guys.
The yearly library funding request,
Motion to approve.
is there a second?
That's just what we do every year. I'll second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Jason. Any other discussion? John?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And a yes for me.
We need to have the dollar amount in there, but in the minutes, it does not matter.
I can put it in there, yeah.
Probably would be nice just to have in there.
Yep, you got it. We'll make sure it's in there.
They have, like, proposal 1 and proposal 2. Did anyone notice that part?
I'm assuming it was proposal 2. that
There
you
was
guys-
two parts to it. One was,
Oh, so it's approval for both, not
Right.
one or the other, okay.
one for sure and two if you guys were willing.
Gotcha.
Next, you guys all got the email from the fire department for a special meeting request. Do you have a date and time that would work for everybody? I'd like to see what Steve has based on that information before we schedule too much.
Are you thinking like, later this week or next week or?
Probably next week, maybe. Casey will be out the rest of this week. And give you guys some time to get it put together.
I'm available on Monday, and then I might be under review the rest of the week, but don't know, up in the air.
So the 28th.
What time are they playing? They're doing it at 9.
What time do you do it? 7?
That's at 5:30.
Are you done by 7?
Yep.
If you say that, I don't know.
We will be.
One time I had dinner plans with the time he went past 7, so.
There was a time that went past 7?
I had dinner plans one time, that's the one time it went past 7 o'clock for HDC. The one time I had something going on.
So 7 p.m. on the 28th, does that work?
Here?
Jason, Nicole, that works for you? That is the plan, yeah. I think Boy Scouts should be done then by that time too. Because it says from 6 to 7.
They're not kicking me.
Okay, reminders, office on the budget pay, if anybody wants to sign up for that, that's if you want to pay the same amount throughout the year. Or, and that's due by June 1st.
Before the June bills are sent out, so before the 20th of June.
20th of June.
We'll have all the details on the letter that gets sent out, so.
What's the budget pay, I'm sorry?
So what budget pay is if you want to only pay like a set amount each month and have it, on a more budget-friendly type thing, we can set that up for you. So we'll look at your previous 11 months worth of bills and average it out and give you that number. So
Is that just for electrical utilities?
that is across the board, so
Even if you don't, because I thought at one time it was just strictly if you had electric heat.
that's a great question. Actually, no, it would be. It would be if you have electric. So anything else we don't, because we don't do water shut-offs. So, yep, electric, whoever has electric, but it's applicable to all items of your bill. So,
But I think it was meant for electric.
That's when it was started. So I didn't know if it had changed.
yeah, yep. So, yeah, if you're interested, get a hold of us. We can put you on the list pretty easy. So.
There was one other request that came in to planning and zoning, and I forgot to mention that to you guys, that there is programs in Grand Forks, Fargo, and other communities that they'll help pay, or they'll special sewer improvements. So if somebody needed to, for example, Paul, his sewer line went bad and he needed to replace it from the house out or the water line, he could potentially get it specialed, but we can let
Okay, one more time?
So if your water sewer line got busted and it needed to be replaced,
Yeah.
the homeowner would ultimately find it, do it, get it paid for, but the city would pay X amount of it, and then we special that homeowner for the rest amount over X amount of time.
Okay.
So it'd come up on their taxes to help alleviate, instead of a $10,000 or $15,000 bill. Do you know what it costs, Paul, to put in your sewer line? You need water.
I want one.
So to help alleviate some of that cost. Because it could be tearing up the street, it could be,
Is this like a new thing, like you're asking, or?
we don't have anything in play. The person that
They just
asked,
usually get assessed or what?
normally they just pay for it on their own, so the homeowner would have to pay for it.
Oh.
This was a house that was being sold, and the agent asked if we would have a program similar to what Fargo or Grand Forks does, which we don't. Well, we've done it in the past a little bit when we helped do some over by
It's over there.
Breen, what it would have been Breen's and Nelson's. But we
Right.
didn't put it on, we didn't special it, it was bill pay, but I think talking with JR,
Yeah.
special is the better route to go.
Right.
That one was kind of in a time crunch at that point, so.
Well, a lot of us, I think, were new too. I don't think any of us knew any different.
All I need to know is if it's something that you guys are interested in. If it is, we'll try to figure out something. Nothing we need to approve tonight. Just, I don't want to put a lot of work into it if it's not something that you guys are interested in doing.
I don't think so. I mean, if there's options and it works.
Is there a cap on it typically?
I don't know. I haven't looked into it that much. They sent a plan, or one that Fargo does. But I can't remember how much it was. Paul, your thoughts?
I don't,
Okay. John?
sounds like a lot of work for the office.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an option out there, but the other side of it too is people start using it.
Well, it'd have to get approved here.
They're paying for it, but if it's, I don't know, is it something you'd be able to keep track of within the system?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, with Tyler, it wouldn't be so bad. You just set it up like a special assessment district on its own, and then you just certify specials. The two projects that Levi referenced, with Green and Nelson, those are ones that are high maintenance right now because they weren't special assessed. So, I mean, they signed agreements saying, that they'll pay a portion of it every month. And, if they don't do that, I've never had to deal with the repercussion of that. We have had to send letters in the past. So it is more high maintenance, and I do have to watch it.
How much have you worked with the?
So how that would work is if you guys did want to have a program like that, I'm JR, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would just agree to having this project put on their specials. They sign a contract, and I certify it to the county prior to November 1st every year. So it's like a one-time deal, and then you just keep track of it. A lot of, like our current program, it could keep track of it as far as what needs to be certified, the amount and all of that. If you guys want to put on interest and penalty, you can do that, with our system or our new Tyler Tech system, whatever. So a lot easier doing it the special assessment route, a lot less maintenance. So.
Yeah, I'm interested in that, just, I think it's good to have that option.
Jason?
I think it's worth looking into.
The Nicole makes a motion, is there a second? Seconded by Jason. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?